The first snow of the year was falling, soft and quiet, the kind of silence that usually calmed the Mafia boss, Enzo Marino. But not today, because a little girl was standing at the entrance of his club, shivering, shoes soaked, eyes red from crying. "Please," she whispered, pulling on his sleeve. "Can you help me? My mom didn't come home last night." Enzo froze. He knew the girl. Her mother cleaned his offices on the night shift, always polite, always grateful, never late, never irresponsible. Something was wrong. "Where did you see her last?" he asked. The girl pointed toward the street, toward the falling snow, toward the dark corners of the city no child should ever walk into. Enzo didn't hesitate. He took off his coat, wrapped it around her, and held her hand as they stepped into the silent, freezing night. With each block they walked, his instincts sharpened. Tracks in the snow, a fallen purse, broken glass glittering like ice. This wasn't a disappearance. It was something else, something planned. And when they reached the alley, the little girl tugged his coat again. "Mom always waited for me here, but today there's only her phone." The phone was half buried in snow, screen cracked, still warm. Enzo's breath tightened. Someone had taken her. Someone who thought no one would come looking. They were wrong. Very, very wrong. Because the Mafia boss who ruled the city's darkest corners was now following the trail of a missing mother and the terrified child who trusted him more than anyone alive. And what he found next in that snow would shake the entire city. Stay with me until the end, because the truth behind the mother's disappearance will make you question what justice really looks like in this city. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now, let's get started. The night was bitter cold, the kind that cuts through fabric and settles deep in your bones. Enzo Marino had seen plenty of harsh winters in his 43 years, running the most feared operation in the city. Snow meant fewer witnesses, muffled sounds, and clean getaways. Tonight, it meant something entirely different. Tonight, it meant following the footsteps of an 8-year-old girl named Sofia, whose world had just collapsed. Sofia clutched his coat tighter as they walked deeper into the maze of narrow streets behind his club. Her breath came out in small white puffs, and every few steps she would look up at him with those wide brown eyes that held far too much worry for someone her age. Maria Santos, her mother, had been working for Enzo's organization for almost 2 years now. Not in the dirty business. Never that. Maria cleaned offices, restocked supplies, and kept her head down. She was the kind of woman who said thank you twice for everything, and always asked if there was extra work she could pick up. "She promised she'd be home before I woke up," Sofia whispered, her small voice barely audible over the wind. "She always keeps her promises." Enzo nodded, his jaw tight. Maria Santos did keep her promises. That's what made this whole situation feel wrong from the very beginning. The woman had never missed a shift, never been late, never caused any trouble. She worked the midnight cleaning crew at 3 different locations across the city, always finishing her route by dawn, always home before Sofia opened her eyes. They turned the corner into Maple Street, where the old brownstones cast long shadows across the sidewalk. The snow was deeper here, untouched except for the faint impressions of footsteps leading toward the main road. Enzo crouched down, studying the patterns in the white powder. 2 sets of prints, one smaller than the other. Maria's size 6 boots and something else. Something heavier, with treads that suggested work boots or military-style footwear. "This is where you saw her last?" Enzo asked, pointing to the bus stop at the end of the block. Sofia nodded. "Every morning at 6:30, she takes the number 12 bus home and I meet her right here after I get ready for school. But today the bus came and went, and she wasn't on it." Enzo's phone buzzed. A text from his lieutenant, Marcus. "Boss, got something you need to see. Meet at warehouse 7. He ignored it. Whatever business emergency Marcus had discovered could wait. Right now, the only thing that mattered was the frightened child beside him. and the growing certainty that Maria Santos hadn't simply missed her bus home. They followed the footprints toward the main street, where the traffic and foot traffic from earlier in the day had churned the snow into gray slush. But there, near the entrance to the subway station, something caught Enzo's attention. A small piece of fabric, bright red, caught on the iron railing that led down to the platform. Sophia gasped. "That's from Mom's scarf. The one I made her for Christmas last year." Enzo carefully pulled the fabric free, examining it closely. The edges were torn, not cut. Torn in a way that suggested struggle, a sudden violent movement that had ripped the delicate knit material. His blood began to run cold, but he kept his expression calm for Sophia's sake. "We're going down to the platform," he said quietly, taking her hand again. The subway station was nearly empty at this hour. Just a few late-night commuters huddled on benches waiting for the last trains of the evening. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the tiled walls. Enzo's eyes swept the platform methodically, looking for any sign of what might have happened here hours earlier. Then he saw it. Near the far end of the platform, where the shadows were deepest and the security cameras had blind spots, there were signs of a struggle, scuff marks on the concrete, a small pool of something dark that hadn't quite dried despite the cold air circulating through the station. Sophia tugged on his sleeve. "Mr. Marino, what's that?" Enzo knelt down beside the stain, his worst fears beginning to crystallize. Blood. Not a lot, but enough to tell him that Maria Santos hadn't left this place willingly. Someone had hurt her. Someone had taken her. And they had been smart enough to choose a location where they thought no one would notice or care. They were wrong about that last part. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Marcus. Enzo answered, his voice low and dangerous. "Boss, where are you? We got a problem at the warehouse. Someone's been asking questions about the cleaning lady, about Maria Santos." Enzo's grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that suggests someone knew exactly where she'd be tonight, and when." The pieces were starting to come together, forming a picture that made Enzo's chest burn with a cold fury he hadn't felt in years. This wasn't random. This wasn't opportunistic. Someone had specifically targeted Maria Santos, had planned this, had waited for the perfect moment, when she'd be alone and vulnerable. "Stay put," Enzo told Marcus. "I'm coming to you." He hung up and looked down at Sophia, who was staring up at him with those trusting eyes that reminded him of his own daughter, lost to him years ago in a custody battle that had torn his heart in two. "Sophia," he said gently, crouching down to her level. "I need you to be very brave for me. Can you do that?" She nodded, though her lower lip was trembling. "Good. We're going to find your mother. But first, we need to go somewhere safe where I can make some calls and figure out exactly what happened here." As they climbed the stairs back to street level, Enzo's mind was already working through the possibilities. Who had access to Maria's schedule? Who knew her routines well enough to plan an ambush? And most importantly, what did they want with a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table? The snow continued to fall, heavier now, covering their tracks as they walked back toward his club. But it couldn't cover the trail of violence and fear that someone had left behind. Someone who had made the mistake of thinking they could disappear an innocent woman without consequences. They had no idea who they were dealing with, but they were about to find out. To find out. The warehouse district was a graveyard of rusted metal and broken dreams. Enzo's black sedan cut through the snow-covered streets like a blade. Sophia pressed against his side in the back seat, still wrapped in his oversized coat. She hadn't spoken since they left the subway platform, but her small hand gripped his arm with the desperate strength of someone who had already lost too much. Marcus was waiting outside Warehouse 7, his breath visible in the frigid air. 3 other men stood with him, their faces grim under the yellow glow of the security lights. Enzo had built his empire on the loyalty of men like these, men who understood that some lines should never be crossed. Tonight, someone had crossed every line imaginable. "What do you have for me?" Enzo asked as he stepped out of the car, keeping Sophia close beside him. Marcus held up a manila folder. Security footage from the subway station. And something else you're not going to like. Inside the warehouse, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across stacks of shipping containers and industrial equipment. Enzo led Sophia to a small office area where someone had set up a folding chair and left a cup of hot chocolate on the desk. She climbed into the chair without a word, wrapping both hands around the warm mug. Marcus spread the contents of the folder across a metal table. Security camera stills, timestamps, and what looked like surveillance photos of Maria Santos going about her daily routine. Enzo's jaw clenched as he studied the images. Someone had been watching her for weeks, documenting her movements, learning her patterns. This was planned, Marcus said, pointing to a photo that showed Maria boarding a bus. Look at the timestamp. This was taken 3 days ago. Same bus route, same time, same seat she always chose. Enzo picked up one of the subway station stills. The image was grainy, but clear enough to show 2 figures on the platform. One was definitely Maria, recognizable by her red scarf and the way she carried her cleaning supplies bag over her shoulder. The other figure was larger, wearing dark clothing and positioned in a way that suggested they were trying to stay out of the camera's direct view. Who else knew about Maria's schedule? Enzo asked, his voice dangerously quiet. That's where it gets interesting, Marcus replied. I made some calls. Turns out someone's been asking questions about your cleaning crew for the past 2 weeks. Specifically about the night shift workers, about which routes they take home. Sophia looked up from her hot chocolate. Mr. Marino, did something bad happen to my mom? Enzo moved to her side, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. We're going to find out exactly what happened, and we're going to bring her home to you. His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but something about the timing made his blood run cold. He answered, putting the call on speaker. Enzo Marino, came a voice he didn't recognize. Smooth, confident, with just a hint of an accent he couldn't place. I believe you're looking for something that belongs to me now. The warehouse went dead silent. Every man present understood the significance of that call, the carefully chosen words, the implied threat. But it was Sophia's sharp intake of breath that cut through Enzo like a knife. Mom? She whispered, her eyes wide with desperate hope. Who is this? Enzo demanded, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. Someone who knows the value of leverage, the caller replied. Maria Santos is safe, for now, but her continued. Well-being depends entirely on your cooperation. Enzo's free hand curled into a fist. What do you want? A trade. Your cleaning lady has stumbled onto something she shouldn't have seen, something that could cause significant problems for certain business interests in this city. We need that information contained. What information? There was a pause, filled only by the static of the phone connection and Sophia's quiet breathing. When the voice returned, it carried a note of amusement that made Enzo's skin crawl. Let's just say your legitimate businesses aren't quite as legitimate as you've led certain people to believe. Maria Santos saw something during one of her cleaning rounds that could bring down more than just your operation. It could topple a network that spans this entire coast. Marcus leaned closer to the phone, his expression grim. They all knew what this meant. Maria hadn't just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. She had witnessed something, probably without even realizing its significance, that threatened someone powerful enough to orchestrate her kidnapping. Here's what's going to happen, the voice continued. You're going to retrieve every security recording from your facilities for the past month. Every hard drive, every backup, every piece of digital evidence that might contain what Maria saw. You're going to destroy it all. And then you're going to guarantee that Maria Santos never speaks about what she witnessed. Sophia slipped out of her chair and moved closer to Enzo, pressing against his side. He could feel her trembling, could see the tears threatening to spill over again. This child had already been through too much tonight. The thought of what these people might do to her mother if he refused their demands made his vision blur with fury. And if I don't? He asked, though he already knew the answer. then Maria Santos becomes a permanent part of our waste disposal system, along with anyone else who might have seen what she saw. The threat was clear. This wasn't just about Maria anymore. This was about Sophia, about the other cleaning crew members, about anyone who might have been present during whatever incident had triggered this nightmare. Enzo looked down at the little girl beside him, at her mother's eyes staring up at him with absolute trust. In that moment, he made a decision that would change everything, not just for Maria Santos and her daughter, but for his entire organization and everyone who had made the mistake of thinking they could threaten an innocent family under his protection. "You have 1 hour to consider my offer," the voice said. "I'll call back with instructions for the exchange. Don't disappoint me, Marino. The consequences would be unfortunate for everyone involved." The line went dead. The warehouse fell silent except for the distant sound of wind rattling the metal walls and Sophia's quiet sniffling. Enzo stared at the phone in his hand, his mind already working through possibilities, strategies, and the kind of justice that couldn't be found in any courtroom. Someone had made a fatal error in judgment tonight. They had threatened a child. They had taken an innocent mother, and they had forgotten who they were dealing with. Marcus cleared his throat. "Boss, what's the play?" Enzo looked around at the faces of his men, at the loyalty and determination he saw there, at the little girl who had trusted him enough to ask for help when her world was falling apart. When he spoke, his voice was calm, controlled, and absolutely deadly. "Get me everything we have on our recent security upgrades. I want to know exactly what Maria might have seen and when she saw it. Then I want you to find out who's been asking questions about our cleaning crew." He turned to Sophia, whose small frame seemed even tinier in the vast warehouse space. Her dark eyes held a mixture of fear and determination that reminded him of himself at that age, when the world had first shown him its cruel face. "Sophia," he said gently, kneeling down to meet her gaze, "I need to ask you something very important. When your mom came home from work, did she ever seem worried? Did she ever mention seeing anything strange?" The little girl wiped her nose with the back of her hand, thinking carefully. "Last week she seemed different. She kept checking the locks on our door and looking out the window. She said she might have seen something at work that she wasn't supposed to see." Marcus exchanged a look with Enzo. That confirmed their worst fears. Maria Santos had indeed witnessed something significant enough to warrant her kidnapping. "Did she say what she saw?" Enzo pressed gently. Sophia shook her head. "She just said that sometimes grown-ups do bad things and think nobody's watching, but somebody's always watching." The words hit Enzo like a physical blow. Maria had been trying to protect her daughter even then, giving her just enough information to be careful without burdening her with the full truth. Enzo stood and walked to the far end of the warehouse, his mind racing through the implications. His organization had been expanding their legitimate operations over the past year, buying up office buildings and retail spaces throughout the city. The cleaning contracts were part of that expansion, a way to maintain control over their properties while providing jobs for people in the community. But someone else had been using those same properties for their own purposes. Someone who thought they could operate under his nose without consequences. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. A single photo. Maria Santos, sitting in what looked like an abandoned building. Her hands bound, but her eyes defiant. She was alive, but the message was clear. Time was running out. Marcus appeared at his side. "Boss, we pulled the security footage from all 3 buildings Maria cleaned this week. There's something you need to see." They huddled around Marcus's laptop as he pulled up the footage. The timestamp showed Tuesday night, 2:47 a.m., at the Meridian office complex downtown. The camera showed Maria entering the executive suite on the 15th floor, her cleaning cart in tow. "Watch this," Marcus said, fast-forwarding the footage. At 2:52 a.m., Maria froze in the middle of the hallway. She turned toward a door that should have been locked, her body language shifting from routine work to alert caution. She approached the door slowly, then quickly backed away, her hand covering her mouth in shock. She saw something in that room. Enzo muttered, something that made her realize she was in danger. The footage continued, showing Maria finishing her cleaning route in record time, constantly glancing over her shoulder. As she left the building, she pulled out her phone and appeared to be taking photos or video of something off camera. That's what they want, Marcus said. Whatever she recorded on her phone. Enzo's blood ran cold. The phone they'd found in the snow, cracked and abandoned. Had Maria managed to hide evidence before her attackers found her? Or had they already destroyed whatever she'd captured? Sophia tugged on his jacket. Mr. Marino, my mom always backs up her photos to the cloud. She showed me how to do it in case I ever lost my phone. Hope surged through Enzo's chest. If Maria had managed to upload whatever she'd witnessed, they might still have leverage in this deadly game. His phone rang again. The same unknown number. Time's up, Marino, the voice said without preamble. Have you made your decision? Enzo looked around the warehouse at his men, at little Sophia clutching her empty hot chocolate mug, at the security footage frozen on his laptop screen. In that moment, he realized this wasn't just about saving Maria Santos anymore. This was about sending a message that would echo through every dark corner of the city. I've made my decision, he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. But it's not the one you're expecting. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When the voice returned, it had lost some of its smooth confidence. I don't think you understand the position you're in, Marino. We have something you want. You have something we need. It's a simple transaction. You're right, Enzo replied. It is simple. But you made one critical mistake. And what's that? Enzo looked down at Sophia, who was watching him with those trusting eyes that reminded him why he'd gotten into this business in the first place. To protect people who couldn't protect themselves. To be the shield between innocence and the predators who would destroy it. You took someone under my protection, he said quietly. And you involved a child. The silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of unspoken threats and promises of violence. You have 2 hours to return Maria Santos unharmed, Enzo continued. If you do that, I might consider letting you leave this city alive. A harsh laugh echoed through the phone. You're not in a position to make demands, old man. We know exactly how many men you have, exactly how far your influence reaches. You're outnumbered and outgunned. Maybe, Enzo admitted, but you forgot something important. Which is? Enzo smiled, a cold expression that never reached his eyes. I didn't build my reputation by being reasonable. He hung up the phone and turned to face his assembled men. The warehouse fell silent, except for the steady rhythm of snow hitting the metal roof and the distant sound of traffic on the expressway. Marcus, I want every available man on the street within the hour. Start with the abandoned buildings in the industrial district. They're holding her somewhere they think we won't look. Boss, Marcus said hesitantly. These people, whoever they are, they've been planning this for weeks. They know our operations, our routines, our weaknesses. Walking into this could be a trap. Enzo nodded grimly. It probably is. But they made one mistake when they calculated the odds. What's that? He knelt down beside Sophia's chair, meeting her eyes with the solemnity of a sacred vow. They assumed I would choose my business over one little girl's mother. They were wrong. Sophia reached out and took his hand, her small fingers cold but steady. Are you going to bring my mom home? Yes, Enzo said simply. I am. As his men dispersed to prepare for what was coming, Enzo remained in the warehouse with Sophia, studying the security footage and planning the kind of rescue operation that would either save Maria Santos or destroy everything he'd built over the past 2 decades. But as he watched the little girl color in a notebook someone had found for her, humming quietly to herself despite everything she'd been through, he realized that some things were worth destroying an empire for. The snow continued to fall outside, covering the city in a blanket of white that would soon be stained with blood, because Enzo Marino was about to remind everyone why crossing his family had consequences that echoed through generations. And this time, family meant more than just blood and business. This time, it meant a frightened little girl and her missing mother, who had trusted him to keep them safe in a world that showed no mercy to the innocent. He checked his watch. 1 hour and 47 minutes until his deadline expired. Somewhere in this frozen city, Maria Santos was waiting for rescue, probably wondering if anyone would come for a cleaning lady who had seen too much. She was about to find out that in Enzo Marino's world, everyone mattered, especially the people who thought no one would fight for them. The hunt was about to begin. The first drops of blood appeared in the snow 40 minutes later, crimson against white like spilled wine on fresh linen. Enzo's men had spread across the industrial district like shadows, moving through abandoned factories and empty warehouses with the precision of wolves hunting in pack formation. The temperature had dropped another 10 degrees, turning their breath into clouds of vapor that dissipated quickly in the bitter air. Sofia sat in the passenger seat of Enzo's sedan, wrapped in a blanket someone had found in the trunk, watching the city pass by through frost-covered windows. She hadn't spoken since they left the warehouse, but her eyes tracked every movement, every building, every alley they passed. This child had grown up too fast tonight, had seen too much of the world's ugly face in the span of a few hours. Marcus's voice crackled through the radio. "Boss, we found something at the old textile plant on Harbor Street. Fresh tire tracks, multiple vehicles. Looks like they've been using it as a staging area." Enzo pressed the radio button, his voice low and controlled. "How many men do you see?" "Building's dark, but there's movement on the second floor. At least 3 figures, maybe more. And boss, there's a van out back with medical equipment visible through the windows." The medical equipment detail hit Enzo like a physical blow. These weren't just kidnappers looking for a quick ransom. They were prepared for something much worse. Something that required cleanup, disposal, the kind of work that left no witnesses and no evidence. Sofia shifted beside him, her small voice cutting through the tension. "Mr. Marino, why would someone hurt my mom? She never did anything bad to anybody." Enzo turned to look at her, seeing his own daughter's face from years ago. The innocence that the world had slowly stripped away through custody battles and legal manipulations. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people do terrible things because they're scared. Your mom saw something that scared some very bad people." What did she see? That was the question that had been gnawing at him since the phone call. What could a night shift cleaning lady have witnessed that was worth kidnapping and murder? His legitimate businesses were exactly that. Legitimate. The cleaning contracts were straightforward. No hidden agendas, no secret operations. Unless someone else had been using his properties without his knowledge. The radio crackled again. "Boss, we got movement. 2 vehicles just pulled up to the loading dock. Looks like they're preparing to move out." Enzo's jaw tightened. If they moved Maria to a secondary location, finding her would become infinitely more difficult. The city had 1,000 places to hide a body, 1,000 ways to make someone disappear forever. "All units converge on Harbor Street. No one moves until I give the signal." He turned to Sofia, his voice gentle but firm. "I need you to stay in the car, okay? Lock the doors, keep the engine running, and if anything happens that doesn't look right, you drive straight to the police station on 5th Street. Can you do that for me?" Sofia nodded, though her eyes were wide, with fear. "Are you going to bring my mom back?" "I'm going to try my best, sweetheart, but I need you to be brave for just a little longer." The textile plant loomed against the night sky like a monument to the city's industrial past. Broken windows stared down at the street like empty eye sockets, and graffiti covered the lower walls in layers of spray paint that told stories of urban decay and forgotten dreams. Snow had accumulated on the fire escapes and windowsills, giving the building a deceptively peaceful appearance that masked whatever horrors were unfolding inside. Enzo parked 2 blocks away, positioning the sedan behind a delivery truck that provided cover while still offering Sofia a clear escape route. He checked his weapon, a .45 caliber pistol that had been with him through 15 years of territorial wars and business negotiations. Tonight, it felt heavier in his hand, weighted with the responsibility of an 8-year-old girl's future. Marcus appeared at his window, moving like smoke through the falling snow. "Buildings surrounded. We count at least 6 hostels, probably more. They've got Maria on the second floor, northeast corner room. She's alive, but they've got her restrained. Relief flooded through Enzo's chest, followed immediately by cold fury. Alive meant there was still time. Restrained meant they were planning something that required her cooperation or her silence. What about security? Cameras, alarms, motion sensors? Place has been abandoned for 3 years. No power, no security system. But they've got portable generators running, probably for their equipment. Enzo studied the building through binoculars, mapping entry points and escape routes. The loading dock where the vehicles were parked offered direct access to the first floor. The fire escape on the east side looked stable enough to reach the second floor. Multiple broken windows provided alternative entry points, though they'd be visible to anyone watching from inside. His phone buzzed. Text message from the unknown number. A single word. Time. Then another message. A photo of Maria, this one showing her in what looked like a makeshift medical setup. IV lines, monitoring equipment, surgical instruments laid out on a metal table. The message was clear. They weren't just planning to kill her. They were planning to make her disappear completely, to extract whatever information she had through means that would leave no trace behind. Enzo's vision blurred with rage. These people had turned this into something personal, something that went beyond business or territory or even revenge. They had made it about inflicting maximum pain on an innocent woman whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. When the smoke cleared and the snow turned red, Maria Santos walked out of that textile plant, holding her daughter's hand. Sofia's trust in a stranger had saved her mother's life. Enzo Marino had reminded the city that some lines should never be crossed, that protecting the innocent was worth more than any empire. Sometimes justice doesn't come from courtrooms or badges. Sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places, wrapped in a child's faith and a dangerous man's conscience.